Am I an endangered species? How long will we close our ears? I am a woman. I have a story. Is my voice even welcome here?
Most of the events that are recorded in our Bible are events that men did.
This time and in this place in history, women had very, very little power.
She is a character that's completely neglected.
I think that her only claim to fame were two sons.
Rizpah could have stayed at home, sewed, cooked, cleaned, and done what every other woman in Israel did. But she would have never made it into the Word of God.
I mean, we don't hear about very many women in the Bible in general, do we?
Therefore, when you find one, it's a big deal to God.
Picture it, Texas, 2011. Not only was it my first time attending a women's conference with over 25, I'm guessing 25,000 women, but it was also my very first time of hearing a woman's story named Rizpah. I will never forget it. The title of the message was Till Raindrops Fall. Her life was used as an example of being able to beat back all of the circumstances in your life. You can beat back the enemy when he's trying to steal your purpose. You can beat back the enemy despite the circumstances. I remember flailing my arms, fighting off all of the things that the enemy could throw at me, along with 25,000 women. And it was such a powerful, wonderful experience I will never trade for anything. However, after many years and lots of study, I have found out that despite my jumping up and down and my excitement and my emotions, that the story of Rizpah is one of those truly hard stories. It is a story of sexual violence, of trauma, of blood, guts, tears, agony, trauma. It's got revenge, it's got murder, it's got politics. And by today's standards, this biblical story could not be told without an R rating. But despite all those hard things, it's also a story of unwavering love and tremendous faith. During the Art of Spiritual Direction, a question that you might hear more than once is, what is God inviting you to? As we explore this story, I need you to remember that while God invites, trauma demands our attendance. It will not take no for an answer. So, as we step into this story, let's begin with what it was like to be a woman during this period in time. During the war between the house of Saul and the house of David, Abner had been strengthening his own position in the house of Saul.
When Saul dies, he has a son, and the commander of his army puts his son on the throne and is really the power behind the throne and trying to rule through him.
Now Saul had a concubine named Rizpah, daughter of Ai.
She is the daughter of Ai, one of Esau's descendants, the side of the family that no one talks about. She's named. I love the fact that she's named. So immediately when we see that she's named in the Bible, we know that it's going to be significant. But she's named, but she's other. She's still other.
And Ishbosheth said to Abner, "Why did you sleep with my father's concubine?"
A secondary wife is a low-status wife. She is a woman who is a legal wife, but because of the category of the marriage, does not have the right of inheritance for her children. In the Hebrew Bible, that distinction is identified by the use of the term pelagish. Readers will often see that mistranslated as concubine, which is really the selling of women into sexual servitude. Does not happen in the Hebrew Bible.
Abner was very angry because of what Ishbosheth said. So he answered, "Am I a dog's head on Judah's side? This very day I am loyal to the house of your father Saul and to his family and friends. I haven't handed you over to David, yet now you accuse me of an offense involving this woman. May God deal with Abner, be it ever so severely, if I do not do for David what the Lord promised him on oath, and transfer the kingdom of the house of Saul, and establish David's throne over Israel and Judah from Dan to Beersheba." Ishbosheth did not dare say another word to Abner because he was afraid of him.
He's confronted about his political loyalty and his actions. And in that conversation where he's confronted, he is accused of raping Rizpah. In his response, he says something to the effect of, "How dare you ask me this? I was for Saul, but now I'm going to be for David. And I know that God made a vow that David should be king, and I'm going to help God make David king. Don't bother me about this woman." And so the way that he dismisses the claim about this woman and does not deny it makes it fairly certain that she was vulnerable, and as often happens in militarized conflicts, she was sexually assaulted.
Abner does to her whatever he wants to do. He dismisses her in the text, and that's clearly a rape dynamic involved.
I think in terms of the biblical story, she represents a woman that is not protected by men who are either not in position or in place where they should be, or more specifically, how we just get caught up in the power struggles and the political ambitions.
She's just at the whim of all these men. Everything in her life is at the whim of some man and his anger or his poor choices or revenge or something, like everything, all these things happening to her, she doesn't have a choice in it.
I think a larger issue is that people have been taught to read the scriptures from a male point of view and identifying with the Israelites. People are not used to reading as other characters to start with. And then when that character has such a terrible story, there may be resistance or lack of understanding.
During the reign of David, there was a famine for 3 successive years. So David sought the face of the Lord. The Lord said, "It is on account of Saul and his blood-stained house. It is because he put the Gibeonites to death."
Blood guilt is a very ancient concept in which one person offends another in a grievous way, or a nation offends another. And the only way the dispute can be settled is with blood.
The king summoned the Gibeonites and spoke to them. Now the Gibeonites were not a part of Israel, but were survivors of the Amorites. The Israelites had sworn to spare them, but Saul, in his zeal for Israel and Judah, had tried to annihilate them. David asked the Gibeonites, "What shall I do for you? How shall I make atonement so that you will bless the Lord's inheritance?" The Gibeonites answered him, "We have no right to demand silver or gold from Saul or his family, nor do we have the right to put anyone in Israel to death." "What do you want me to do for you?" David asked. They answered the king, "As for the man who destroyed us and plotted against us, so that we have been decimated and have no place anywhere in Israel, let 7 of his male descendants be given to us. to be killed and for bodies exposed before the Lord at Gibeah of Saul, the Lord's chosen one. So the king said, I will give them to you.
David is always siding with the enemy for some reason. Nothing. Just don't even know why. And he chose to do it in this occasion as well. He asked for an answer. He was inquisitive enough. Why? God gave him the answer because of Saul's bloody house. Okay, so we get that. But his solution was, let's just bring the Gibeonites in there and ask them for what they want. They would have never had the audacity to ask or even assume that they could have the head of an Israelite.
David was under the impression that he needed the blessing of the Gibeonites to end this famine. And so he was looking for a way to resolve this blood guilt.
They were the sworn enemies. And in fact, the only reason why they would even have the nerves is because of a vow that Joshua made to protect them, but it was deception.
In the story of Joshua, Joshua is presented as conquering all of this Canaanite territory. But I want to caution readers to read the first couple chapters of Judges, which takes Joshua down a peg and points out that he, in fact, did not conquer 90% of what he said he conquered. But in that book, there is the story that the Gibeonites saw the Israelites coming into the land like a horde of locusts, killing everybody in their wake. And they wanted to protect themselves, so they engaged in a subterfuge. And since Joshua thinks they are from far away, he makes this peace treaty that is ironclad. And then is later revealed that they're from nearby, and because of the subterfuge, they get condemned into enslavement. Well, as a result of that ironclad treaty, Gibeon is where it is. The land of Benjamin is going to be drawn around it, and Saul is, of course, a Benjaminite, and that may be under his animus. And David asked the Gibeonites, well, what can I do to eradicate this blood guilt? And you will bless the land and end the famine. Notice there is no asking God to end the famine. It's all in this semi-magical encounter with the Gibeonites.
The king spared Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the oath before the Lord between David and Jonathan, son of Saul. But the king took Armoni and Mephibosheth, the two sons of Ai's daughter Rizpah, whom she had borne to Saul, together with the 5 sons of Saul's daughter Merab.
David makes a selection. He takes the son of Jonathan, his beloved, and pulls him out of the pot so that he will be safe. And he gathers up Saul's sons from different mothers, including Rizpah, who has 2 sons.
So in essence, David's rise to power comes to everything that she had.
He handed them over to the Gibeonites, who killed them and exposed their bodies on a hill before the Lord. All 7 of them fell together. They were put to death during the first days of the harvest, just as the barley harvest was beginning.
Some translations will say hangs them, but it's really a lynching. The verb underneath that has to do with hanging and dislocation of the body. So they're not just displayed, but they are in fact lynched. Some translations will also say that they are impaled. In selecting the sons that he selected, David also eradicates any potential claims to the throne of Saul. So he was being political.
She doesn't have a voice, but that's not unusual. Many characters don't have a voice. But then how do we as readers approach these texts? Do we just skip over, or do we read in a way where we think about this character and what this character is experiencing in the story?
Anytime there's a famine, there's a lack of something. What you find in both of these stories in terms of his is now lack of compassion. Not only just the scarcity of resources, for him there was a lack of rain. That meant that people couldn't flourish and prosper. That meant they can, and they're looking for a king for leadership. But how he leads is with more balance. How she leads is with lament. different. It means that there's something that breaks your heart enough that wants you to seek a better answer.
It's not just a grieving mother, but it's also the fact that she is literally losing everything. There is no Social Security, there is no Medicare in this society. The only assurance she has that she's not going to starve as an old woman is from her sons, who are now gone.
Losing a child is really, really tough. I mean, you can never prepare yourself for anything like this. Your first reaction is yelling, screaming, crying. You don't want anybody to touch you. You don't want to be around anybody, and that was my first reaction to it all.
We know that there's a lot of trauma involved. We've already seen that she's been widowed. There's been this long-standing feud between tribes. And now she loses her 2 sons. And not only that, has to bear witness, because now she's looking at them as 7 other, all 7 of the men that were killed. So it is something about being in that moment.
First thing they ask you is, how do you get through it? And it's just like, I tell them what I do, every day. And they've tried some of those things, some things they haven't tried. And I just pretty much tell them it'll never go away. It's going to be there forever.
I also looked at it from the standpoint of mourning, because in this country, we don't allow that grieving. We understand it, but it's a place that we don't touch.
I think probably we used to be better about that. And, people would just bring the coffee into the kitchen table and set it on the table, and the body would just be there in the house with the family, and they would take days to mourn and to grieve, and it was really a process. And I mean, little by little, that just keeps being stripped down and almost sanitized, trying to make it nice and clean and not so messy. But it's messy. Grief is messy.
Statistically, it's stated that when a parent does lose a child, that they really need to be monitored at least within that first 3 to 6 months, because they themselves most of the time become suicidal.
Unimaginable, just atrocious, something that just jars your senses, sends you in you're either raving. I think you're raving lunatic, or it's just a very thin line that you're holding on to, and you're just struggling to try to breathe. You feel suffocated in it. Nothing about your common sense makes sense. And there's very little soothing. It just aches and it does not stop. It's unrelenting. And there's nothing you can do to undo it. It's done. There's no coming back. There's no point of return. And so as much as you bargain and want that moment to happen, it'll never come.
What is the most horrific part of losing a child?
Just never being able to see them again. Just never hearing their voice, never hearing that cry, never being able to touch them again. Those would be the main things.
Judaism doesn't really have a concept of afterlife. So there isn't this idea that, okay, well, my loved one's dead, but they've gone to heaven, and maybe I'll see them again someday. The only way that you kind of have any comfort is knowing where your loved one is buried. Rizpah is denied this. And even worse, when a body is left out in Judaism in the manner in which King David allows these bodies to be left out and consumed by wild animals, the bodies themselves are basically consumed by unclean animals. It's the ultimate insult. It's like you're being put to death, and then your sentence continues.
Mothers do what it takes to protect.
Rizpah, daughter of Ai, took sackcloth and ashes and spread it out for herself on a rock. From the beginning of the harvest till the rain poured down from the heavens on the bodies, she did not let the birds touch them by day, or the wild animals by night.
She could not offer to them, in life what she did in death. In life, she could not protect them.
Depression makes you desperate from her perspective. It makes you desperate to where, hey, I couldn't save my babies from their fate, but now I can save them. This is my way of kind of dealing with what I had to experience here, and nobody can keep me from doing this.
She sits there in this silence, not still, but active in the most gruesome way.
As a mom, she was doing what it took to make sure that she covered her babies.
It was no word. It was her action. And it was saying that enough of this is enough. We get to redefine, reframe our stories, and recapture our own narratives.
She's fighting off winged scavengers, that would be vultures and such. She's fighting off predators. Who knows what she's fighting off?
I don't know. I didn't know then that this was her trajectory, but I see it so clearly now. It's taking something very, very difficult. You're not knowing all the answers. You just show up and you're present in the moment, and whatever comes, like wind, rain, I just don't know, when did she eat? Did somebody take turns? I mean, is there so much about that story that you don't know? But it looks absolutely crazy, but you understand it when you don't have a compass anymore, when your world has been so turned upside down that you're just struggling for gravity, trying to center yourself. But having the courage to stick in it and stay until change comes.
Watching the bodies of the children she birthed decay into dirt, it's not a pretty sight. And so this is such a visceral scene. And she is saying with her actions, you will not look away.
What did she see? What did she smell? What did she hear day after day after day while she was up on that rock? It's great that we can say that she was with Jesus, but that does not discount what she went through. What is it that she wants us to see? What is it that we don't want to see?
It's a very long process. It is, I can't imagine sitting there next to or under or associated with a body that's going through it for a long period of time, because goodness, it's a lot to just have that encounter on the order of minutes. And if I do an autopsy exam, on the faster end would be 20 to 30 minutes. On the longer end, it might be a few days, but even still, we take breaks, fresh air. And so anything more prolonged, that's somebody enduring a lot. By a week in the sun, definitely your skin is going to start to decompose, which means, starts to fall off. Same thing with your subcutaneous tissue. So your fat starts to go away, any muscle you have. Then you start to be able to actually see into the body. So you can see into the organs that are there. At some point, and this will depend the local insects that are in the environment, but they'll actually start landing. They're attracted to that exposure. So not only does your skin just erode, this decomposition fluid forms. It's actually just the fluid from your cells lysing and breaking apart. Anywhere there's a hole, the fluid tends to leak out of your mouth. And so these flies will come, lay eggs, depending on the environment. So we're talking about the desert, perhaps they're vultures. And we're mammals, we're animals. So they come and they fly and they swarm and they eat. But for some reason, their internal biome, whatever bacteria they had naturally, just emits a very rough odor that is sometimes even hard for us to smell
And then if there's any involvement in the bowel, so if the bowel breaks down for some reason, maybe the bacterial load was high, you're not only talking about just bacteria, maybe decomposition fluid, but also fecal matter, which has a range of smells, if you can imagine. Usually starts very subtle with the green discoloration of the abdomen, the grain, that'll eventually spread. All your blood vessels will actually start breaking down. And so it's a condition or a development called post-mortem cutaneous marbling. So actually, you can really see the veins, and they're like a purple red color, kind of zombie looking, to be quite honest. And then the whole skin changes to this green, gray, red discoloration, but everything starts to slough off. It's a very prolonged process. It can take months, depending on the climate, for a body to be completely what we call skeletonized.
She leaves them as sort of a witness against David. And months go by. From the reckoning of the Hebrew calendar, it's about 6 months that she has her children's bodies descending into decay.
She kept guarding and protecting those bodies day after day, night after night, week after week, month after month. She did it without proper rest. She did it without proper food. She did it without proper help. No one helped her do it. No one said, listen, I'll take a shift. Why don't you go home and rest? No one said, listen, let me pick up some food. So no one even came to her rescue to help her to do that, because I think most people thought she was crazy. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your energy. They're dead, Rizpah.
Now you see her hypervigilance. You see her staying up. She's pretty much unhinged. It looks all kind of crazy. She's fending off bird, fowl, foe, and not sleeping. Completely consumed in grief. And it's complicated.
It's like, when it happens, everybody's there. They're there at your beck and call. But then when a year goes by, it's like, you're trying to still get through things. But I just felt like everybody just scattered. And there was no constant communication, support, and I kind of handled it on my own. My now husband was probably the most supportive person besides my mom.
It's just unimaginable. You're just sitting there thinking oh, it ain't just, oh my God. It's like, what you don't have like I said, you don't have a sender, you don't have Groundly. And we're not well informed because, shake it off and move on. And it may be popular. It's not always helpful.
When a person has went through trauma, basically in the lower part of their brain, that's where you have what's called the amygdala. And literally the amygdala gets stuck. And to where it is almost like you're just kind of looping the messages that needs to go to the front part of your brain, this prefrontal part where you have rationalization taking place. You don't have that simply because it's stuck. And people that are looking to help the person that has experienced trauma, they would say, oh, come on and just go with me. Come on, let's do this. Or you just need to get out this house. You just need to, but don't realize that their brain is literally stuck.
Part of our inattentiveness is don't know what to do. But I think it's part of our strength because that's the place that you can ask for help because you don't always know. And then how you can just jump into a situation. But I think the best thing, and I've learned over these years, is to get into the process and kind of disrupt what the enemy wants. He wants you unhinged. He wants you powerless. He wants us to turn our backs. He doesn't want us to walk together. Because if you suffer together, you will reign together. If you rejoice together, it's all of these things. But you don't know that because you stay so distant from it because it looks all kind of crazy. And then it's just not for one day. Because we don't tend, you can be sick, you can be hurt, you can be sad, but you just can't do it too long.
People are uncomfortable with their own grief, their own pain, their own negative emotions. And so they're certainly not going to be okay with other people's and other people expressing that or letting them stay in that. Everybody wants to fix everybody else. But I feel like God wants us to honor our grief.
She's everything that we think about when we think about complicated grief. But here it is, and she's somebody to be dealt with. Do we continue to overlook, or do we join her in that process? Because that's the frailty of us being human. We are vulnerable, and we don't know what it takes to unhinge us, unsettle us, or get us to the place where we just cannot function.
That's another element of neuroplasticity as well. Because for some reason, sometimes our society, tells us, it's time to get over it now. No, grief doesn't have a time factor. It doesn't have a time frame. Grief has to be seen. And I believe that's one of the main things that RISPA was doing without even having a session in a counselor's office.
Now, I know we never want to admit to ourselves that we're giving up on someone. That is very harsh language. However, I would invite you now to ask yourself, how long would you have given her to grieve? What could happen if we give up on fixing and just settle for being there, for being present? What does being present look like? Where do we begin?
Always be mindful that there are RISPAs all around us.
Oh, dear my. Yeah, he would have been 22 this year. He was born on my sister's birthday, April 29th. And he was just a delight. He was probably the best baby to be around. He was always happy, fun, laughing, joyful. He did have a natural mean mug like me. But he resembled my grandmother a lot. He had her skin tone. He was darker tone. And just, I don't know, he was just my baby.
My sister-in-law lost her oldest son at the age of 20. I don't think, she just told us it's the 50-year anniversary, or he would have been 50 here recently. And she said it doesn't ever go away. You do get used to it more, but it doesn't ever go away.
Unbeknownst to me, my nephew could lose his life tragically. He did have a whole court case, and there was no motive. It was just the craziest thing. But I was completely unhinged. It devastated my family, and I didn't know what to do. And I had, I did, clinical exposure, did counseling, like the whole thing. But I did not know how to take that. I was angry. I was sad. I was upset. I stayed up. I wrote letters. We showed up for court. We went through this process. We have rituals of remembrance for his birthday, which we continued years after. It was just completely rigged and wrong.
I think about the other women that may have had some type of loss. How she basically turned, I would say, basically her pain into power.
By staying by their bodies day after day and night after night, she screams into the void, "This is not okay."
As a result of that, she was able to get the attention of David.
When David was told what Ai's daughter Rizpah, Saul's concubine, had done, he went and took the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan from the citizens of Jabesh Gilead. They had stolen their bodies from the public square of Beth-shan, where the Philistines had hung them after they struck Saul down at Gilboa. David brought the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan from there, and the bones of those who had been killed and exposed were gathering up. They buried the bones of Saul and his son Jonathan in a tomb of Saul's father Kish at Zillah in Benjamin, and did everything the king commanded. After that, God answered prayer.
David becomes shamed by this act, and he goes and we hear that he gets the bones of Jonathan. Jonathan is supposed to be his beloved, but when Saul and Jonathan were killed by the Philistines, their bodies were put on display, as many ancient peoples do. And so
David gets all the bones back. He buries them, and he finally buries Rizpah's sons. And that's the point when the rains come.
Her very courageous act of lamenting also gave David the ability to do what probably he always wanted to do, bury his friend decently. Maybe Saul was a different story, but because Rasta did what she did, it also allowed that grace for him to extend grace, gather those bones, bring some closure, bury them with decency, because we still need to respect life God gave. So until you actually officially mourn the loss, you don't move forward. That's just process. It's a season like every other. Unfortunate and sad, but it's still a season.
Some pain is light-based, which is mainly what we deal with in inner healing. But some pain is truth-based. And when someone dies, there's not another way to look at that. Even though as Christians we believe their spirit is going on with the Lord, and hopefully someday we'll see them again. And yet, for a mother who's grieving her child, she wants that warm body to hold on to.
What does the word healing mean to you?
Honestly, don't know.
Okay.
I don't.
That's an honest answer. I appreciate it.
I can't answer that.
That's good.
Because I feel like I've never been healed.
Why do you stand far away, O Adonai? Why do you hide in times of trouble?
We know that the Bible is true, but it's not all nice. It's not all sweet. Why would God write the nasty stuff?
I don't get the impression that people questioned back then. Whatever they were taught, whatever, they were raised in, that was, the God of my father is my God. And so my sense was that was the way it was for her as well. Now, the sad thing is she does, I see so many people who have daddy issues, and therefore their view of Father God is affected by that. And she has ample opportunity to have issues with male authority in her life, and therefore have her relationship with God be affected in a negative way.
The real issue is, how are we connecting these stories to the issues of the day, which for many are divisive. But the issues were divisive then. They were killing each other. Some of us are killing each other now.
How do we still deal with the marginalized and the oppressed? What does that look like in terms of power dynamic? Who gets overlooked? Who gets moved up? It's just a lot. So I think a lot of this is what was my part? Did I do enough? And then what am I doing?
Another aspect is that this story is told about her, and she is not given voice in the story. She is not permitted to speak a single word. Surely she would have railed at David. Surely she would have shrieked and cried at the deaths of her sons. Surely she cried out to God, very likely railed against God. What did she say? What did she do?
I think the illusion is to say this is what the text means. Well, to whom? For what reason? When? Why? For what purpose? Who gains when we read it this way or that way? These are all questions that we need to ask ourselves, and not just say, oh, this is what the text means, or this is what the text meant way back then. And I tell you how way back then women were only property and this and that. And of course, there was no rape, because Hebrew doesn't even have rape as a verb. So there cannot be rape at all. That's just a contemporary invention. But we are the readers, and therefore we produce the readings. And to understand in what kind of reading tradition we are standing helps us.
It's important to ask those two questions. Where is God in the story? And understand that God is not always present in some texts. And as a reader, take note. Oh, God is not speaking here. This person has taken this action on their own initiative. And be honest that God does not rebuke some of these terrible actions, that women often experience horrific violence, and God does not come to the rescue of women like Rizpah or Jephthah's daughter in the way that God came to the rescue for Isaac. And it's important to ask those questions and not take the simple answer, well, God was going to build a nation through Isaac and had these plans. Does not God have plans for all of us? Are any of our lives throwaway lives? And so it's important to ask that other question, why is this in here? But it's interesting that even though the Samuel account is the rise of David and the move into the monarchy, the division of the monarchy, it's very critical of David. It honestly acknowledges some of the horrific acts that David commits. So it's important to look at those and consider what it's telling us about this beloved character and about the institution of monarchy, which ultimately fails. So wrestle with these stories, and I would really encourage your viewers and your hearers to ask hard questions of the text and hard questions of God, because God can take it, the text can take it.
And I think those are good questions to ask God. I think it's okay to wrestle with God over those kinds of things. And I think he appreciates our honest wrestling a lot more than he does us trying to act like everything's fine and hunky-dory and we're just great. Because that's not our true selves. I mean, that's a false self that we're portraying to the Lord.
Even though we have been a hush-hush society, I believe now that because trauma is so common and it's crying for answers, and as a result, we have to show up for those answers.
You know, in Rizpah, you can see only one of two things. Either that woman was crazy, who gave her life to something that didn't matter, or that woman with heart was so full of love, she was just going to do it anyway.
What's the meaning for this? How is it that I can truly help? How can I truly turn my pain into power for myself and for others there? That was more of the gist that I got out of Rizpah, in addition to basically changing the perspective of the culture.
It isn't always safe, and it isn't always pretty. And in Rizpah's case, it certainly wasn't safe or pretty. But we are called, as people of God, to take whatever action we can to unravel evil, injustice, and oppression, whatever ways we are able.
We have a space here where we can explore our opinions and our prejudices and our assumptions and explore them with the Bible. And then we also realize this is connected to the world. It's not independent. It's not just the Bible is just by itself, has nothing to do with our lived experiences in the world. And the lived dynamics, political dynamics, the economic dynamics, social and theological, it's all connected. And it gives us a possibility to test things out, how we are thinking about something. And then we realize we can think about it differently. We can ask questions and we can reject certain answers and we can come up with new answers. And we develop our thinking ground. You know, God gave us a brain for a reason, and the reason is that we can think and we can ask questions and we can explore and we can understand and we can change our opinions and we can broaden our opinions. Very, very important. We don't just have to live in a little box and close it and that's the end of this. No, we open the box, but many people don't want to read the Bible this way because they don't want to touch on their own fears and experiences.
I guarantee you that there are circles in your life, that there are places in your range where you can resist evil, oppression, and injustice in whatever forms they present themselves.
But looking at that text, it takes a lot of guts to sit out there and brave through elements for the sake of saying, I want them buried with respect and dignity because their lives matter. It's something different from a learned text than a lived experience.
I've been through therapy 3 times. And, you know, of course, my faith and belief in God and everything and reading the word to better understand things. It just, I don't know. I feel like you can never, ever get past it. It's something you're going to be constantly reminded of, that was a part of you that you lost. And you'll never forget that.
We have to honor our emotions. We have to allow ourselves to lament. The Bible gives us lots of good examples of, you know, there are lots of psalms that are lament psalms. And so I think we need to be able to do that.
And you have to repurpose your life. Are you still a mother? You never stop being one. Imagining yourself different, strengthening what remains. Giving back to other people who have you come through this journey, and something about being in that space where you can help other people. And I think that's the gift of coming from a place of being so disempowered, but taking what strength you have to make sure that people don't get overlooked, even in death.
You are the helper of the orphan. Break the arm of the wicked, the evil ones inquire wickedness until you find no more. Adonai is king forever and ever. Nations have perished from his land. Lord, you have heard the desire of the humble. You will strengthen their heart. You will incline your ear to do justice to the orphan and oppressed, that the man of the earth will no more, no more, no more strike terror.